I'm Samantha, 34, positioned outside my sister Natalie's estate, mascara trickling down my cheeks. Minutes earlier, she declared me worthless in front of everyone at our mother's birthday festivities. The security officer's grip still stung on my arm where he guided me out. Through my tears, I peered back at the corporate executives, observing my disgrace. Natalie believed our joint business ownership meant nothing in my possession. As my tears subsided, resolve replaced astonishment. My sister had no clue what I was capable of achieving with my 30% ownership. She'd discover soon enough. Before I start my tale, I'd love to know where you're viewing from. Press that like and subscribe button if you've ever been undervalued by relatives. Believe me, you'll want to witness how I transform this embarrassment into the business decision of a lifetime. Growing up, Natalie and I shared a complex relationship. My sister, 4 years my senior, consistently drew attention with her magnetic personality and daring concepts. I was the contrast. Methodical, contemplative, preferring to watch before speaking. Despite our distinctions, we were tight as youngsters, constructing imaginary enterprises in our backyard and fantasizing about managing corporations together. Our parents, Michael and Diana, launched their technology venture in our garage when I was merely 6. TechVision started as a modest software development firm but expanded swiftly throughout our youth. By the time I reached high school, it had transformed into a multi-million-dollar corporation specializing in business intelligence solutions. Dad consistently believed in both of us equally. Sammy possesses the foresight to anticipate where technology is advancing, he'd declare when I'd recommend enhancements to their products. Natalie understands how to market it. He appreciated our different talents and demanded we both master every facet of the business from the foundation up. Mom, however, leaned toward Natalie's more forceful methodology. Business demands courage, she'd inform me when I questioned risky choices. Your sister comprehends that. Diana was fascinated by Natalie's capacity to dominate a room, to make definitive decisions without hesitation. My more careful approach was frequently dismissed as uncertainty. After university, we both entered TechVision officially. Natalie rapidly advanced to lead the sales department while I discovered my position in marketing and product development. Though my contributions were less apparent, our data-driven marketing initiatives substantially boosted market share. The analytics platform I assisted in developing became our most lucrative product line. Though Natalie frequently presented it to clients as her project, Dad recognized during our private meals. He'd acknowledge my achievements. The company requires both flame and water to flourish, he'd state. Natalie provides the flame, but you ensure we don't exhaust ourselves. These instances supported me through years of operating in my sister's shadow. 2 years back, everything shifted when Dad passed away suddenly from a cardiac episode. His testament revealed he'd organized the company ownership thoughtfully. Natalie and I each inherited 30% shares with Mom retaining the remaining 40%. The board stayed unchanged, but the family dynamics altered drastically. Natalie instantly established herself as CEO with Mom's approval. I remained in my position as Chief Marketing Officer, though I discovered my department's funding slowly diminishing. Concepts I suggested in meetings were rejected only to reappear weeks later as Natalie's groundbreaking directions. The routine became progressively clear. Mom's health started deteriorating shortly after Dad's passing. Rheumatoid arthritis made it challenging for her to participate in all board sessions, and she increasingly depended on Natalie for updates and counsel on company affairs. The more reliant she became, the more Natalie's authority expanded. 6 months back, I recognized a potential acquisition prospect, a small AI enterprise whose technology would ideally enhance our analytics platform. Their assessment was fair, and their staff would blend well with ours. I developed a thorough analysis and acquisition plan, enthusiastic to present it to the board. The day preceding the meeting, Natalie summoned me to her office. "I've examined your suggestion," she stated, reclining in Dad's former chair. "It's not the appropriate time for this type of speculative investment." "It's not speculative," I argued, indicating the market research. Their technology would provide us a 2-year edge over rivals. She dismissed me with a gesture. The board must concentrate on immediate revenue possibilities, not your hobby projects. The following day, my suggestion wasn't even featured on the meeting schedule. When I inquired about it, Natalie smoothly replied, "We've chosen to postpone speculative acquisitions for now." As if the choice had been mutually made. I observed several board members appearing uneasy, but nobody voiced objections. The routine persisted with my role and influence steadily decreasing despite my ownership position. Natalie started excluding me from crucial client meetings and strategic planning sessions. As Mom's condition deteriorated, she spent more time at Natalie's estate, further cementing their partnership. I'd visit and find them examining company documents together, conversations halting suddenly when I entered the space. The gap between us widened, but I still didn't foresee just how far Natalie would go to sideline me. Mom's 65th birthday celebration was organized as a sophisticated garden party at Natalie's estate. I arrived promptly, hoping to assist with final preparations, but was informed by the event coordinator that Miss Natalie has everything managed. Instead, I found myself awkwardly mingling among early attendees, primarily Natalie's friends and some board members. The extensive garden had been converted with white roses and sparkling lights. A string quartet performed near the fountain and servers moved with champagne. Natalie had spared no cost using company resources, I later learned. "Samantha, good to see you," called Gerald Hoffman, our longest-serving board member. He'd been Dad's friend for 30 years and had consistently treated me respectfully. "How's the new market expansion progressing?" Before I could respond, Natalie emerged, threading her arm through Gerald's. "We've actually shifted from Samantha's original strategy," she said effortlessly. "The initial numbers weren't compelling." "That's not correct," I replied, attempting to keep my tone steady. "The Asian market forecasts show a 24% growth opportunity." Natalie's smile grew strained. "Always so devoted to your calculations, Sam. Gerald, come meet the Andersons. They're considering a substantial investment." I observed them depart, irritation mounting. This had become her typical approach, undermining me, then physically removing people from the discussion. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that this was Mom's occasion. I wouldn't cause a disturbance. As more guests arrived, I noticed several important clients and potential investors among them. Mom sat in a spot of honor near the rose garden, appearing fragile but content as people came to offer birthday greetings. I was conversing with Mom when I noticed him. Lawrence Chin, CEO of Innovate, the acquisition target I'd investigated. I excused myself and approached him, surprised. "Mr. Chin, I didn't anticipate seeing you here." He smiled cordially. "Your sister invited me, mentioned there were people I should encounter." He lowered his voice. "Though I was hoping to speak with you. Your evaluation of our technology integration possibilities was remarkable." My heart accelerated. "You saw my proposal? Your sister shared it when she contacted us. I assumed it came with your awareness." Before I could process this information, I spotted a potential supporter. Jordan Blackwell, a venture capitalist who'd previously shown interest in our analytics division. I directed Mr. Chin toward him, quickly facilitating introductions. Jordan, Innovate Tech's AI processing capabilities would transform the dashboard system we discussed last quarter, I explained, outlining the potential integration points. Jordan's eyes brightened with interest. "That could address the processing bottleneck we identified. What's your timeline for implementation?" As I began explaining the acquisition framework I developed, Natalie appeared beside us, champagne in hand. "Samantha, Mom's requesting you," she interrupted. When I didn't instantly move, her voice hardened. "Now, please." "We're in the midst of an important discussion," I replied, maintaining my position. Natalie turned to Jordan and Lawrence with a rehearsed apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, gentlemen. My sister sometimes gets enthusiastic about theoretical possibilities. We have no intentions to acquire Innovate at this time." Lawrence's expression dropped. But the documentation I received was unfortunately sent prematurely, Natalie interrupted. A clerical mistake. Our focus this quarter is on expanding existing product lines, not acquisitions. Jordan looked between us, clearly detecting the tension. Perhaps we should. The acquisition makes complete sense, I insisted, retrieving the market analysis on my phone. The numbers support it entirely. Look at the projected integration benefits. Natalie's face reddened with anger. Enough, Samantha. This is humiliating. What's humiliating is rejecting a perfect strategic opportunity without proper evaluation, I countered, my voice rising despite my best efforts. Natalie's eyes narrowed as other guests began to notice our confrontation. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a poisonous whisper. You've always been like this, creating a scene, forcing your novice ideas where they're not desired. Novice. I repeated, incredulous. The analytics division I constructed generates 40% of our revenue, she snapped back, which you'd know if you actually attended the financial meetings. Meetings I'm no longer invited to. By now, a small group had assembled around us, including several board members and Mom, who'd been wheeled over by her nurse. Natalie. Samantha, please, Mom said weakly. Not today. But Natalie was beyond restraint. Years of bitterness seemed to flow out as she stepped back and addressed the spectators. This is precisely why Dad's company is struggling under shared leadership. While I'm securing our future, my sister wastes resources pursuing impractical dreams. That's not accurate, I protested, looking around at the uncomfortable faces surrounding us. It's completely accurate, Natalie continued, her voice rising. You've always been the useless one, Samantha, playing with numbers while the adults make real decisions. You believe your ownership makes you significant? You're dead weight to this corporation and this family. A collective gasp swept through the gathering. Mom covered her mouth, eyes widened, but said nothing in my defense. The silence was overwhelming. Tears stung in my eyes as I looked from face to face, finding either shame or blank indifference. No one spoke up. Not even Gerald, who'd known me since childhood. I think you should depart, Natalie said icily. You're destroying Mom's party. When I didn't move instantly, frozen by shock and disgrace, she nodded to the security guard positioned near the house. Please escort my sister out. The guard approached hesitantly. Miss Natalie, are you certain? Now, she ordered. Large hands gently but firmly seized my arm. I'm sorry, Miss Samantha, the guard whispered as he guided me through the stunned crowd. The last thing I witnessed was Mom's face, tears flowing down her cheeks, saying nothing as I was removed from the festivities. In my vehicle, the full impact struck me. My hands trembled so violently I couldn't insert the key. Sobs shook my body as the afternoon sun blazed down on the car. 34 years old, and I'd been publicly disgraced and expelled from a family event like a misbehaving adolescent. I finally managed to drive home, moving on autopilot. My phone stayed silent. Not one call or message from anyone at the party, not even Mom. Around midnight, as I sat staring vacantly at old family photographs, my phone finally rang. It was Gerald. Samantha, I'm so sorry about today, he began. What Natalie did was unforgivable. Yet no one said anything, I replied, my voice hoarse from crying. I know. We were all stunned. He paused. But that's not why I'm calling. There's something you should know. Natalie has scheduled an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. The agenda includes a proposal to restructure the executive team. My stomach plummeted. She's trying to remove me. Not entirely. The proposal suggests moving you to a strategic consulting role without operational authority. He sighed heavily. Given her influence with your mother and several board members, it will likely succeed. After we hung up, a strange tranquility replaced my earlier anguish. I pulled out my laptop and began examining company documents, financial reports, board minutes, anything I could access. As the night advanced, troubling patterns emerged in Natalie's recent choices. Resources redirected to projects connected to her friends, inflated contracts with vendors she had personal relationships with, strategic initiatives that benefited her division disproportionately. By dawn, I had filled a legal pad with notes and questions. Natalie had called me useless, but she'd forgotten something vital. I understood the company's numbers better than anyone, and numbers told stories that couldn't be silenced by security guards or family loyalty. The morning after the catastrophic party, I called James Frell, a financial advisor who'd worked with Dad for years, but had been gradually marginalized by Natalie. Unlike the other financial consultants now employed by the company, James had no reason to fear my sister. "Can we meet?" I asked, my voice still raw from crying. "It's important." 2 hours later, we sat in a quiet corner of Riverside Cafe, far from the corporate district where we might be recognized. James listened attentively as I recounted the party incident and Gerald's warning about the upcoming board meeting. "I'm not surprised," he said finally, stirring his coffee. "Natalie's been consolidating power since your father passed. I've witnessed the patterns." I pushed a flash drive across the table. "These are all the financial records I could access. Something doesn't compute in several divisions." James plugged the drive into his laptop and began scrolling through spreadsheets. His expression grew increasingly concerned. "There's definitely cause for alarm here. The Westlake project's budget increased by 40% with no corresponding deliverables. And this vendor, Blue Stream Solutions, they're charging premium rates for basic services." "Blue Stream is owned by Robert Carroll," I explained. "Natalie's former boyfriend." James raised an eyebrow. "That's a clear conflict of interest if undisclosed." He continued analyzing the documents, occasionally making notes. "Samantha, some of these allocations could potentially constitute financial impropriety. Not criminal necessarily, but definitely against company governance policies." A glimmer of hope ignited within me. Is it enough to stop her from removing me? Possibly more than that. Let me examine the shareholder agreement and company bylaws. He pulled up more documents, reading carefully. After several minutes, he looked up with renewed interest. "There's a clause here, Section 14.3, regarding suspected financial impropriety. If formally alleged by a major stakeholder, it triggers an automatic freeze on significant financial decisions pending investigation, including executive restructuring, including any board decisions not related to day-to-day operations." He leaned forward. "But Samantha, triggering this clause is serious. It would effectively declare war with Natalie. There would be no going back to the way things were." I thought about my sister's cold eyes as she called me useless. About Mom's silence. About years of being undermined and dismissed. "I understand. What do I need to do?" "First, we need more concrete evidence. Then, legal counsel." James closed his laptop. "I know just the attorney." That afternoon, I met with Patricia Winters, a corporate lawyer specializing in shareholder disputes. Her office was minimalist and intimidating, much like Patricia herself. "Your situation is unfortunately common in family businesses," she said after reviewing my documents. "The evidence suggests concerning patterns, but we need more specifics before triggering the clause." "The board meeting is Monday," I reminded her. "Then we work quickly." She opened her calendar. "I'll clear my weekend. Meanwhile, I suggest you look deeper into this Innovate situation. If Natalie rejected a beneficial acquisition for personal reasons, that's another angle." Following Patricia's advice, I reached out to Lawrence Chin directly. He agreed to meet me that evening at a small restaurant near his office. "I was confused by the mixed messages," he admitted. "First, this detailed acquisition proposal, then your sister's complete reversal." "May I see what she sent you?" I asked. He pulled out his tablet and opened an email. To my shock, the attached document was my complete acquisition analysis with only the cover page changed to include Natalie's name instead of mine. She represented this as her work. I asked, my voice tight. Lawrence nodded uncomfortably. Based on her subsequent rejection, I assumed TechVision was using the proposal to extract competitor information. It's an unethical but not uncommon tactic. That was never the intention, I assured him. The proposal was genuine and the strategic fit is real. He studied me for a moment. I believed in the synergy your analysis outlined. That's why I attended yesterday despite my reservations. We spent the next hour discussing Innovate's technology in detail. The more we talked, the more convinced I became that this acquisition was exactly what TechVision needed. Why do you think your sister opposed it so strongly? Lawrence asked. As our meeting concluded, the question haunted me through the night. I reviewed the organizational charts, the revenue projections by division. Around 3 a.m., the pattern became clear. Innovate's AI integration would significantly enhance the analytics platform I developed, potentially making it the company's dominant product line, overshadowing Natalie's division. The next morning, I received an urgent text from James. Found something. Meet ASAP. Back at Riverside Cafe, James slid a folder across the table. Financial records from the Davidson account. Your sister has been charging personal travel as business expenses. Look at these hotel bills. Room service for 2, spa charges. All during supposed client meetings. That's inappropriate, but hardly enough to. There's more, James interrupted. I have a contact at Mercury Bank. Natalie's been having meetings with Alexis Reynolds. The name hit me like a physical blow. The CEO of Globe Tech, our biggest competitor. James nodded grimly. 3 meetings in the past month, all at private locations. Nothing conclusive, but highly unusual. We need to know what those meetings were about, I murmured, mind racing. There's one person who might know, James suggested. Thomas Bailey, Natalie's executive assistant. He schedules everything. Getting to Thomas proved surprisingly easy. A text suggesting I knew about the Globe Tech meetings was enough to secure a nervous coffee meeting. I could lose my job for talking to you, he said, eyes darting around the busy coffee shop. You could face worse if there's something illegal happening and you're implicated, I countered. His face paled. I'm just an assistant. I schedule meetings, make travel arrangements. Including Natalie's meetings with Alexis Reynolds? He swallowed hard. Those weren't on the official calendar, but you knew about them? After a long pause, he nodded. Miss Natalie has been discussing a potential position with Globe Tech, Senior VP of Strategic Development. The betrayal struck deep. She's planning to leave TechVision? Not exactly. Thomas lowered his voice further. From what I understand, Globe Tech is interested in acquiring some of TechVision's assets. Miss Natalie would move to their executive team as part of the deal. Everything suddenly clicked into place. Natalie wasn't just trying to diminish my role. She was positioning for a complete takeover or dismantling of our family company. The emergency board meeting wasn't just about removing me. It was about beginning the process of selling off parts of Dad's legacy. I spent the remainder of the weekend gathering evidence, consulting with Patricia and James, and preparing for what would undoubtedly be the biggest confrontation of my life. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This wasn't just about sibling rivalry or corporate politics. Natalie was planning to dismantle everything our father had built. Sunday night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by documents and legal strategies. Despite the solid case we'd built, doubt crept in. Natalie had always been the confident one, the persuasive one. Could I really stand against her and win? My eyes fell on a photo of Dad and me taken during a company retreat. I was showing him the prototype of the analytics dashboard, and his face was lit with pride. You notice things others overlook, Sammy, he told me that day. That's your superpower. In that moment, I made my decision. I wouldn't be the victim in Natalie's power play. It was time to use my superpower and fight back. Monday morning arrived with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Instead of preparing for the emergency board meeting Natalie had called, I began systematically reaching out to potential allies within the company. My first call was to David Keller, TechVision's CFO. Though officially reporting to Natalie as CEO, David had always maintained a professional independence. He agreed to meet me at a coffee shop several blocks from the office. "I've been worried about several financial decisions lately," he admitted after I shared some of my findings. "The board only sees the aggregated reports. They don't see the unusual patterns in specific allocations. Would you be willing to voice these concerns officially if necessary?" I asked. He hesitated. "Natalie can make life difficult for anyone who crosses her. So can a financial investigation if impropriety is found," I reminded him gently. David ran a hand through his graying hair. "My professional reputation is built on financial integrity. If you trigger a formal investigation, I'll provide accurate information." With David cautiously aligned, I next reached out to Harold Jacobson, my father's oldest friend on the board. We met in the park where he walked his dog every morning. "Your father would be devastated to see what's happening," Harold said, throwing a tennis ball for his retriever. He built TechVision for both his daughters. "Did you know about Natalie's meetings with Globe Tech?" I asked. Harold's weathered face registered genuine shock. "Globe Tech? Absolutely not. That would never have been approved by the board." I showed him the evidence Thomas had provided. Harold's expression darkened as he read. "This goes against everything Michael stood for. TechVision was never meant to be carved up and sold off. Will you support me if I challenge Natalie?" Harold handed back the documents. "Michael always said you had his business sense, even if you were quieter about it." "Yes, I'll support you, but tread carefully. Natalie has cultivated strong relationships with several other board members." Building on this momentum, I arranged lunch with Marcus Donovan, our largest client. Marcus had always appreciated the analytics platform my team had developed. "Frankly, I've been concerned about TechVision's direction lately," Marcus confided. "The last 3 updates have been disappointing, and my requests for customization have been ignored." "That's exactly why I wanted to meet," I explained. "I'm trying to refocus the company on innovation and client responsiveness." "Like the AI integration you mentioned at the party?" I nodded. "The Innovate acquisition would allow us to implement the features you've been requesting, plus capabilities you haven't even considered yet." Marcus leaned forward, interested. "If you can deliver that, you'll have my full support. But I heard things got ugly at the party. Family disputes have tanked companies before." "This isn't about family feelings," I assured him. "It's about the future of TechVision and serving clients like you properly." By mid-afternoon, I had also secured a meeting with the innovation team, a group of brilliant developers who had grown increasingly frustrated under Natalie's leadership. Their leader, Sofia Rodriguez, didn't mince words. "We've had 3 major ideas shelved in the past year," she complained. "Always the same reason, not aligned with current revenue targets. Including the mobile analytics platform that we built a working prototype for that tested extremely well with focus groups. Natalie killed it because it would have required restructuring sales commissions." I shared my vision for the company's technical direction, including the Innovate acquisition. The team's enthusiasm was palpable. "That's the TechVision we signed up for," Sophia said. "Count us in. What do you need from us?" "Documentation of all rejected innovations with their projected market impact," I replied. "And your presence at tomorrow's meeting." With key operational allies secured, I returned to Patricia's office to finalize our legal strategy. She had prepared the formal documentation alleging financial impropriety, which would trigger the protective clause in the company bylaws. Once filed, this initiates an automatic freeze on major decisions and launches an investigation, she explained. But the allegations must be substantiated, or you could face counter-actions for corporate defamation. "The evidence is solid," I assured her. "Evidence is one thing. presentation is another. She fixed me with a penetrating gaze. Your sister is charismatic and persuasive. Are you prepared to stand your ground when she attacks you personally? Because she will. The question hit a nerve. Despite my preparations, I still harbored doubts about confronting Natalie directly. She had always been the dominant personality in our relationship. I've arranged for you to meet someone, Patricia said, noticing my hesitation. Catherine Young. She was my first mentor in corporate law and specializes in preparing clients for high-stress confrontations. Catherine proved to be exactly what I needed, a former litigation attorney turned executive coach. She spent the evening helping me prepare for every scenario Natalie might throw at me. Your sister will try to trigger your emotional responses, Catherine explained. She knows your buttons better than anyone. When she attacks, don't defend your feelings. Pivot to facts. We practiced potential confrontations with Catherine playing a devastatingly accurate Natalie. Initially, I fumbled, getting flustered and emotional. But as the hours progressed, I grew steadier, more focused. Remember, Catherine said as our session concluded, this isn't about proving yourself to Natalie or anyone else. It's about protecting the company your father built and your own future within it. That night, I took practical steps to prepare for potential fallout. I contacted a real estate agent to find temporary accommodations, anticipating that my relationship with Mom might become strained. I backed up all relevant company documents to secure servers that couldn't be wiped remotely. I asked James to prepare financial contingencies in case my access to company resources was restricted. As midnight approached, I found myself standing in my home office, staring at the photo of Dad that had always sat on my desk. I don't know if I'm doing what you would want, I whispered to his smiling image. But I'm doing what I believe is right. The quiet house offered no answer, but as I finally prepared for bed, I felt a strange sense of peace. Tomorrow would change everything one way or another. But for the first time in years, I wasn't operating in Natalie's shadow. I was charting my own course, using the business acumen Dad had always believed I possessed. Whatever happened at tomorrow's confrontation, I would face it as my father's daughter, not as Natalie's overlooked little sister. Tuesday dawned clear and cold. I dressed carefully in a charcoal suit with a blue blouse, Dad's favorite color, my small private tribute to his memory. My hands trembled slightly as I fastened my mother's pearl earrings, but my resolve remained firm. I arrived at TechVision headquarters at 6:30 a.m., 2 hours before the office typically came to life and well before Natalie's usual 9 a.m. appearance. The security guard looked surprised but waved me through. "You're early, Miss Samantha." "Big day, Frank," I replied with a calmness I didn't entirely feel. In my office, I methodically executed the first phase of our plan. I secured digital copies of all documentation we'd need for the board meeting, ensuring they couldn't be deleted or altered from the central servers. I sent formal emails to all board members notifying them of allegations of financial impropriety and invoking Section 14.3 of the company bylaws. At 8:15 a.m., I submitted the official documentation to the corporate secretary, who looked increasingly alarmed as she processed what she was reading. "Miss Samantha, this is very serious. This automatically freezes several accounts pending investigation." "I'm aware, Helen. Please ensure all board members receive copies immediately." I had just returned to my office when my phone rang. Natalie's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Her voice vibrated with fury. "Protecting the company," I replied evenly, Catherine's coaching echoing in my mind. "No emotion, just facts." "By making ridiculous accusations? You've frozen accounts we need for operations." "Only the discretionary executive accounts and pending approvals. Day-to-day operations aren't affected." I kept my tone professional. "The board meeting you called provides the perfect opportunity to address these concerns." "You're making a massive mistake," she hissed. "I'll have your steak before this is over." "I look forward to discussing everything with the full board present," I replied, ending the call before she could respond. My phone immediately lit up with messages from board members, executives, and Mom. I responded only to Harold, confirming I would present evidence at the meeting. The others would have to wait. At 9:30 a.m., I stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor and came face to face with Natalie in the lobby. She was dressed in a crimson suit that radiated power, her expression thunderous. "You've lost your mind," she said loudly enough for nearby staff to hear. "These accusations are completely unfounded." "Then you have nothing to worry about from an investigation," I replied calmly, walking past her toward the boardroom. "This little stunt won't save your job," she called after me. "The board already agrees you're not executive material." I turned back briefly. Then today should be interesting. The boardroom was tense when I entered. Several members were huddled in conversation, falling silent as I approached. Harold gave me an encouraging nod. Mom sat near the head of the table, her face etched with worry and confusion. She didn't meet my eyes. Natalie swept in moments later, taking her usual seat at the head of the table. "I apologize for the confusion this morning," she began smoothly. "It appears there's been a misunderstanding about some routine financial allocations. We'll clear that up quickly and then proceed with our original agenda." "Actually," Harold interjected, "given the invocation of Section 14.3, we're required to address these allegations first. Nothing else can proceed until they're resolved." Natalie's smile tightened. "Of course. Samantha, since you've disrupted company operations with these claims, please enlighten us." All eyes turned to me. This was the moment Catherine had prepared me for. I opened my laptop, connected it to the room's display system, and stood. "Board members, what I'm about to present isn't just about questionable financial decisions," I began. "It's about the future of TechVision and honoring the company my father built." Over the next 40 minutes, I systematically presented the evidence we'd gathered. The inappropriate allocation of resources to projects benefiting Natalie's friends, the inflated contracts with vendors she had personal connections to, the rejected innovations that would have benefited the company but diminished a division's prominence. As I spoke, I noticed several board members exchanging worried glances. Natalie repeatedly tried to interrupt, but Harold firmly enforced proper meeting protocol, allowing me to complete my presentation. "These patterns suggest decisions being made for personal benefit rather than company growth," I concluded. "Concerning but potentially manageable with proper oversight. However, there's something more serious." I displayed the evidence of Natalie's meetings with Globe Tech's CEO. "These unauthorized discussions with our primary competitor represent a fundamental breach of fiduciary duty." The room erupted. Natalie leapt to her feet. "This is absurd. Those were industry networking events. At private locations deliberately kept off your official calendar," I countered, "with the CEO who's expressed interest in acquiring parts of TechVision." The door opened and Thomas Bailey entered nervously. "You asked me to come, Miss Samantha." Natalie's face drained of color. "Thomas, leave immediately." "Actually," Harold interjected, "as lead independent director, I'd like to hear what Mr. Bailey has to say." Thomas confirmed everything he'd told me about Natalie's discussions with Globe Tech, including the potential position she'd been offered. As the implications sank in, the boardroom atmosphere shifted palpably. Natalie's allies looked uncomfortable, while others appeared openly concerned. "This is a deliberate mischaracterization," Natalie insisted. "I was gathering competitive intelligence." "Without board knowledge or approval?" Harold challenged. While the board processed this information, the door opened again. Mom was wheeled in by her nurse, having stepped out briefly. Her expression had transformed from confusion to something harder, more determined. "I've heard enough," Mom said, her voice stronger than I'd heard in months. "Natalie, is this true? Have you been discussing selling parts of the company?" "Mom, I've been exploring strategic options for maximizing shareholder value," Natalie replied smoothly, "which is more than Samantha has ever done with her stake." Mom's eyes narrowed. "That's not what Michael would have wanted," And you know it. Dad's gone, Natalie snapped. And his outdated vision was holding us back. A collective intake of breath filled the room. Even Natalie seemed to realize she'd gone too far. After intense discussion, the board voted to conduct a formal investigation into all allegations. Both Natalie and I would be temporarily suspended from operational decisions, with David Keller appointed as acting CEO during the investigation. As the meeting concluded, Mom asked to speak with both of us privately. The three of us moved to a smaller conference room, the weight of decades of family history hanging in the air. "I don't understand how we got here," Mom said, tears in her eyes. "Your father would be heartbroken." "Samantha forced this confrontation," Natalie said coldly. She couldn't accept her diminishing relevance. "You called me useless and had me thrown out of Mom's birthday party," I reminded her, fighting to maintain my composure. "Because you were undermining the company with your impractical ideas. Like the analytics platform that generates 40% of our revenue?" I challenged. "Stop it, both of you," Mom interjected. "This isn't just about business, is it? This has been building since you were children." Natalie's facade cracked slightly. She was always Dad's favorite. Always the smart one, while I did the hard work of actually running things. "That's not true," I protested. "Dad valued both of us." "He said you had his vision," Natalie countered bitterly. "What do you think that meant about me?" The conversation devolved further, decades of resentment pouring out. Mom attempted to mediate, but she was clearly overwhelmed by the depth of the conflict. Eventually, Natalie stormed out, leaving Mom and me sitting in painful silence. "I didn't want any of this," I said finally. Mom reached for my hand. "I know, but I'm not sure there's a way back from here." That night, alone in my apartment, I experienced a swirl of conflicting emotions. Professional vindication mixed with personal loss. I had stood my ground, protected the company, but potentially destroyed what remained of my family in the process. Sleep eluded me as I wondered whether I had made the right choice. The doorbell rang at 7:30 the next morning. I opened it to find Mom in her wheelchair, her nurse hovering discreetly behind her. "Can we talk?" Mom asked, her eyes red-rimmed from what appeared to be a sleepless night. I stepped back, surprised but relieved. "Of course. Come in." Once settled in my living room with coffee, an awkward silence stretched between us. Mom finally broke it. "You must hate me for not defending you at the party." "I don't hate you," I replied carefully. "But I don't understand why you stayed silent." Mom's hands trembled slightly as she held her cup. "I've been enabling Natalie's worst tendencies her entire life." The frank admission startled me. "What do you mean?" "Your sister was always more demanding, more emotional. Your father and I found it easier to give in than deal with the tantrums." She sighed deeply. "When you came along, you were so different, self-sufficient, thoughtful. You didn't demand attention, so you received less of it." "That's not your fault," I said automatically. "It is though." Mom set down her cup with determination. "Parents shouldn't allocate love based on who demands it loudest. After your father died, I continued the pattern. It was easier to side with Natalie than challenge her." I swallowed hard, unexpected emotion rising. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because yesterday opened my eyes." She reached into her bag and pulled out a leather-bound journal. "After the board meeting, I went home and found this in your father's desk. It's his personal journal. I started reading it last night." She handed it to me, open to a page dated about 6 months before his death. Concerned about Natalie's approach to the Richardson contract. Profit margins sacrificed for immediate recognition. Discussed with her, but she dismissed concerns. "We'll need to implement better oversight." Thankful for Samantha's more measured approach to business growth. I looked up, stunned. He was worried about her business decisions. Mom nodded. "There are several entries like that. He never shared these concerns with me. I think he was trying to mentor her privately while protecting her reputation." She gestured for me to turn the page. Another entry read, "Proud of Samantha's analytics platform launch. Transformative potential for the company. She sees where technology is heading better than anyone, including me. Need to ensure her contributions are properly recognized as Natalie tends to dominate presentations." Tears filled my eyes. He really believed in me. He did. Mom reached for my hand, and I should have too. "I'm so sorry, Samantha. I failed you at the party, and I've been failing you for years by not recognizing your value to the company and to our family." The apology unlocked something that had been tightly wounded inside me. Tears flowed freely as Mom moved her wheelchair closer, pulling me into an embrace I hadn't realized how desperately I needed. When I finally composed myself, we began talking more strategically about the situation. "Natalie won't back down easily," Mom warned. "She's always defined herself by being in control." "I don't want to destroy her," I admitted. "But I can't let her dismantle Dad's company or push me out." Mom nodded thoughtfully. "There's something you should know. Natalie's been making decisions the board never approved. The Westlake project expansion, the board approved a 15% increase, not the 40% she implemented. That's a direct violation of governance policies," I noted, sitting straighter. "There's more. She's been misleading me about company performance. These quarterly reports she's been reviewing with me," Mom pulled out some documents. "They don't match what's been filed officially." We spent the morning reviewing discrepancies, my marketing background helping identify manipulated data designed to tell a specific narrative. Mom's insider knowledge of board approvals revealed several instances where Natalie had exceeded her authority. "I'll support the investigation fully," Mom declared. "But I want to minimize public damage to the company. Your father spent 30 years building TechVision's reputation." "I agree completely. A private resolution would be best for everyone, including Natalie," Mom added softly. "Despite everything, she's still my daughter too." The reminder was gentle, but necessary. In my anger and hurt, I had begun thinking of this as purely a business dispute, but it was still at its core a family tragedy. "Do you think reconciliation is possible?" I asked hesitantly. Mom considered the question. "I don't know. Natalie's pride runs deep and she's never been good at admitting mistakes." She squeezed my hand. "But regardless of what happens between you two, I want you to know I see you clearly now. Your father was right about your vision for the company." We spent the remainder of the day preparing for the investigation, identifying key documents and witnesses. Mom's insights into board discussions provided crucial context that strengthened the case considerably. As evening approached, Mom prepared to leave. At the door, she paused. "Whatever happens with the company, I hope we can rebuild our relationship. I've missed so much by not truly seeing you." "I'd like that," I replied, surprised by how much I meant it. That night, I reviewed Dad's journal further. Among business observations and concerns were frequent proud references to both his daughters, though his worries about Natalie's ethical flexibility became more pronounced in later entries. The final entry, written just days before his death, hit me hardest. "Restructured ownership in final today. Equal stakes for the girls with Diana holding balance. Samantha will need the formal authority of ownership to ensure her insights aren't overlooked. Natalie's force of personality tends to dominate, but Samantha's vision is essential to TechVision's future. Hope they can find a way to balance their strengths and lead together after I'm gone." Dad had anticipated the power struggle, but hoped we would find a way to collaborate. That hope had been crushed under years of resentment and recent betrayals. Still, as I closed the journal, I wondered if some version of his vision might still be salvageable, even if it looked different than he had imagined. 2 weeks later, the board reconvened to hear the investigation results. The atmosphere was solemn as the independent auditors presented their findings. Their report substantiated most of my allegations while uncovering additional concerns. The evidence indicates systematic financial decisions benefiting Ms. Natalie's associates without proper disclosure to the board, the lead investigator concluded. Additionally, the undisclosed meetings with Globe Tech represent a clear conflict of interest. Natalie sat stone-faced throughout the presentation. When given the opportunity to respond, she was defiant. Every decision I made was to strengthen TechVision's market position, she insisted. The company needed decisive leadership after my father's death, not committee-based indecision. Decisive leadership doesn't mean unilateral action contrary to board approval, Harold pointed out. The board moves too slowly in a fast-paced industry, Natalie countered. Sometimes action is needed before consensus. That's not your decision to make, Mom interjected, surprising several board members with her firmness. The governance structure exists for a reason. Natalie's expression hardened as she realized Mom wasn't supporting her position. So Samantha turns you against me too. Perfect. This isn't about taking sides, Mom replied evenly. It's about honoring your father's company and the principles he built on. The board moved to deliberation. After intense discussion, they reached their decision. Natalie would be removed as CEO, effective immediately. This isn't just about the investigation findings, Harold explained. It's about restoring trust in leadership and ensuring proper governance moving forward. Natalie's face flushed with anger. You're making a catastrophic mistake. I built those client relationships. I drove the revenue growth. With products Samantha's team developed and financial arrangements that compromised our integrity, a board member responded. The discussion turned to interim leadership. To my surprise, Harold turned to me. Samantha, the board would like to offer you the CEO position. Your financial acumen and product vision are exactly what TechVision needs right now. The offer stunned me. Despite everything that had happened, I hadn't expected this outcome. Natalie's incredulous laugh broke the momentary silence. You can't be serious. She's never led anything larger than the marketing department. Instead of responding to her, I addressed the board directly. I appreciate your confidence, but I have an alternative proposal. I outlined a co-leadership model, myself as Chief Strategy Officer focusing on product direction and innovation, with Barbara Reeves, our experienced COO, elevated to president handling day-to-day operations. Additionally, I continued, I propose we proceed with the Innovate acquisition, funded partially by selling a portion of my personal stake in the company. Murmurs rippled around the table. How much of your stake? Harold asked. $19 million worth, I replied. Approximately half my holdings. The remaining portion ensures I maintain a significant voice in company direction while demonstrating my commitment to this acquisition. The board discussed my proposal while Natalie watched with barely contained fury. They ultimately approved both the leadership structure and the acquisition strategy. As the meeting concluded, Natalie approached me. Selling your stake? Dad would be disappointed. I'm investing in the company's future, I replied, and maintaining enough ownership to protect his legacy. This isn't over, she warned. I'll challenge the board's decision legally. She was true to her word. The next month brought a flurry of legal maneuvers as Natalie attempted to block both her removal and my stake sale. She claimed the investigation was biased and that my actions constituted a breach of fiduciary duty to other shareholders. The case went before Judge Harrington, who reviewed the evidence methodically. The courtroom was tense as he delivered his ruling. The evidence clearly supports the board's decision regarding Ms. Natalie's removal, he stated. The documentation of unauthorized decisions and undisclosed conflicts is substantial and concerning. Regarding my stake sale, he continued, Ms. Samantha's decision to sell a portion of her holdings to fund a strategic acquisition falls within her rights as a shareholder. The court finds no basis for blocking this transaction. Natalie stormed out of the courtroom without speaking to anyone. I found her in the corridor, staring out a window. Natalie, I began. Despite everything, we're still family. She turned, her expression cold. Is that why you systematically destroyed my career? You were selling off pieces of Dad's company to our biggest competitor, I reminded her. I was evolving it, she snapped. Something you never understood with your sentimental attachment to his outdated vision. His vision built a company worth fighting for. She laughed bitterly. And now you get to play CEO while I get nothing. That's not true. You're still a major shareholder. You could have a role if you were willing to work within proper governance. Under your authority? No thanks. She gathered her coat. You may have won this round, Samantha, but you should remember something. I've always played the long game better than you. She walked away, leaving me with the uneasy feeling that this victory might be just the beginning of a longer conflict. Mom attempted to mediate between us in the following weeks, arranging a dinner at her home. The atmosphere was frigid from the moment Natalie arrived. I'm not interested in reconciliation, Natalie declared before Mom could even finish her carefully prepared speech about family healing. Samantha made her choice. Now we all live with it. Your actions forced that choice, I pointed out. Enough, Mom interjected. Can you both see you're tearing apart everything your father built? Not just the company, but this family. Natalie stood abruptly. There is no family anymore, just shareholders with competing interests. She kissed Mom's cheek. I'll call you tomorrow. With that, she left, refusing further attempts at reconciliation. The family fracture seemed complete, and I wondered if some wounds were simply too deep to heal. 6 months passed in a whirlwind of activity. The Innovate acquisition proceeded smoothly, with Lawrence Chen's team integrating seamlessly into our corporate structure. The AI-enhanced analytics platform quickly exceeded our projection targets, generating enthusiastic client response and opening new market segments. My leadership partnership with Barbara proved remarkably effective. Her operational expertise complemented my strategic vision, creating a balanced approach that the board and employees responded to positively. The toxic culture that had developed under Natalie's leadership gradually transformed into one of collaboration and innovation. Mom's health improved dramatically once the family conflict stabilized. Though the relationship between her daughters remained fractured, she no longer felt torn between us. She took a more active role on the board, her business acumen sharpened by recent events. One morning, David Keller requested an urgent meeting. I've noticed something concerning in our shareholder records, he began, sliding a report across my desk. Someone's been systematically purchasing small blocks of TechVision stock through various shell companies. I reviewed the documentation with growing unease. How much have they accumulated? About 4% so far. Not enough to trigger disclosure requirements, but the pattern suggests a deliberate strategy to avoid detection. Any idea who's behind it? David hesitated. Nothing concrete, but the timing coincides with Natalie's departure. The possibility sent a chill through me. She wouldn't have the liquid capital for this scale of acquisition. Unless she had a financial backer, David suggested, like Globe Tech. The threat was clear. If Natalie and Globe were gradually accumulating stock, they could eventually gain enough influence to force the company in a different direction. Further investigation confirmed our suspicions. Natalie had partnered with Globe Tech in a strategic play to regain control of TechVision. More concerning, they were preparing to launch a competing product suspiciously similar to our analytics platform. I called an emergency meeting with our legal team. Can they do this? Use our proprietary technology? Patricia looked grim. They're being careful to make surface changes, but the core functionality appears very similar to our platform. What are our options? That's where things get interesting, she replied, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. I took the liberty of reviewing your early development documentation for the analytics platform. She opened a folder containing patent applications filed shortly after Dad's death. My signature was on all of them. You filed these? I asked, confused. I had no memory of these specific documents. No, your father did, Patricia explained. He put them in your name as the primary inventor. According to the dates, he filed these just days before he died. The revelation stunned me. Dad had anticipated potential conflicts and quietly protected the intellectual property under my name, not the company's. This meant Natalie and Globe Tech couldn't replicate the core technology without clear patent infringement. Does Natalie know about these patents? Unlikely. They were filed personally, not through the company's usual channels. Armed with this unexpected protection, we developed a comprehensive response strategy. Rather than directly confronting Natalie, we quietly prepared for the industry's annual Innovation Awards ceremony where we would unveil the next generation of our platform. The night of the ceremony arrived, the venue glittering with technology industry luminaries. Our team was nominated for Most Innovative Enterprise Solution, competing against 4 other companies, including Globe Tech's suspiciously similar product. As I prepared to take my seat, I spotted Natalie across the room, elegant in a black gown, speaking with Alexis Reynolds from Globe Tech. Our eyes met briefly before she deliberately turned away. The category presentations began. When our platform was showcased, the audience responded enthusiastically to the advanced capabilities the Innovate acquisition had enabled. Globe Tech's offering, presented next, suddenly seemed derivative and limited by comparison. And the award goes to TechVision for their advanced analytics intelligence platform. The team erupted in celebration around me. As I walked to the stage, I caught sight of Natalie's face, a complex mixture of anger and something that might have been grudging respect. After the ceremony, as conversations flowed around the reception, Natalie approached me at the bar. "Congratulations," she said, her tone neutral. "Impressive evolution of the platform." "Thank you," I replied cautiously. Globe Tech's offering looked quite similar, I observed, except for the patented core algorithms, of course. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Patents can be challenged. These are remarkably solid. Dad was thorough when he filed them." Dad filed them. Surprise flickered across her face. "In my name, yes. One of his last acts at the company." Natalie absorbed this information, reassessing the situation. "He always did things several moves ahead. Like ensuring his daughters couldn't dismantle what he built," I suggested. She sipped her champagne thoughtfully. "You know, I'm nearly bankrupt. The legal battles drained my liquid assets, and Globe Tech's investment is tied to deliverables I can't provide with those patents in place." The admission surprised me. I didn't know. Of course not. Why would I show weakness to the person who took everything from me? "You tried to push me out first," I reminded her, "called me useless in front of everyone." She stared into her glass. I was terrified. "Of what?" "Your ideas were better than mine. The analytics platform was outperforming my division 3-1. Dad's journal entries praising your vision." A bitter smile crossed her lips. I was becoming irrelevant in the company I thought I'd inherit completely. The honesty was unexpected. For the first time, I glimpsed the insecurity beneath Natalie's confident exterior. After a long pause, I made a decision. TechVision is expanding the executive consulting division, focused on client relationship management. She looked up sharply. "And you built those relationships. You understand that aspect of the business better than anyone. The position reports to Barbara, not me." "You're offering me a job?" Disbelief colored her voice. "I'm offering you a way to contribute in your area of strength while respecting governance boundaries." "Why would you do that after everything?" I considered the question carefully. "Because Dad believed in both our abilities, and because destroying you doesn't help the company he loved." Natalie studied me for a long moment. "I'll think about it. Don't expect gratitude." "I don't. I expect professionalism and compliance with corporate policies." A hint of her old smile appeared. "You've changed, little sister. Developed quite a backbone." "I always had one. You just never noticed." 3 months later, Mom hosted a family dinner to celebrate TechVision's most successful quarter in company history. To everyone's surprise, Natalie accepted the invitation and the consulting position. Our relationship remained professional rather than warm, but the open hostility had faded. As the evening concluded, Mom raised her glass. To Michael's legacy, not just the company he built, but the daughters he believed in. Natalie and I exchanged a glance that acknowledged both our lingering differences and our shared heritage. Some wounds would never fully heal, but we had found a way to move forward that honored our father's vision while allowing each of us to contribute in our own way. The following week, I hosted a company celebration at the same venue where Natalie had once had me removed by security. As I stood addressing the team that had helped transform TechVision, I reflected on the journey. A year ago, someone called me useless, I told the assembled employees. It was painful at the time, but it sparked a chain of events that revealed strengths I didn't know I possessed. Sometimes being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. It gives you the space to prepare, to build, to strategize without interference. I raised my glass. To the team, to being underestimated, and to proving exactly what we're capable of. The room erupted in applause, and in that moment I felt my father's presence more strongly than I had since his death. He had seen what I could become long before I recognized it myself. His belief had been my foundation when everything else crumbled. From victim to victor, from overlooked to essential, the transformation was complete. And the sister who once called me useless now worked in a division I oversaw. Sometimes justice arrives in ways you never anticipated. But when it does, the satisfaction runs deeper than any revenge could provide. Have you ever been underestimated by family members only to prove them wrong in unexpected ways? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd love to know how you handled family business conflicts or how you overcame being dismissed by those who should have supported you. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible true stories of family betrayal and sweet karma. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. And remember, sometimes the person others call useless ends up changing everything.